What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Truth in Movies. Over 100 episodes now. If you like this kind of stuff, movie decodes, check out my Truth in Movies playlist, where we've got quite a few of some of my favorite movies to watch and to break down. Today, we're going to do one of my favorite, what is he, a producer? I don't know. M. Night Shyamalan. M. Night Shyamalan. I love his movies. I love the twists that he has sometimes. I like that he makes people think. He makes me think a little deeper. And I believe that many, if not all of his movies are basically right up the alley of our ancient Oblivion and the world that we have forgotten about. Now, this movie here is no exception. It's called The Watchers, and it's going to be about the Watchers. As many of you truth seekers out there have studied and learned about the ancient angelic race called the Watchers, or the fallen angels, the Nephilim, demons, however you'd like to see them, the fairies, the fae. We're going to check it all out right now. Now, the movie, typically, it's brought to you by Mount Meru. Now, this one is New Line Cinema, so we're going to break this down first. First, I show you a black cube, or a two-dimensional one, a square. So it got the black square, and in the background is this blue light that's shining, right? I believe this is symbolic of the blue beam, as we talk about, that comes out of Mount Meru. And this black square flies in. This kind of reminds me of Superman, whenever those bad guys were like stuck in that flying two-dimensional square deal. So it flies in, comes in, and then we've got the film pieces that sort of stick to it, right? Now, it's really a black box is what this is. The black cube, there's a black box. There's a box right above me from Moi Freestyle, who just gifted a JayDreamerZ channel membership to someone in the chat. Congratulations to Curry Croissant, or Croissant. Anyway, so it's the black box symbolism. Now, box, originally, we get many words from box. For example, bus. And it means a container. It doesn't have to be a square shape. It doesn't have to be a rectangular shape or a cubical shape. Anything that contains or can contain something else. The black container that has this blue light that emanates from it, which is all Mount Meru symbolism. And then, of course, the name of the production company or film company or whatever is New Line. A new line, a new beam, a new pillar, a new rod, a new column. Blue light, right? So it's all brought to you by Mount Meru, as it typically is. All of our ancient marvels and wonders and strange fantasies and fairy tales brought to you by Mount Meru, because that's where they all begin. Now, this movie begins in a magic forest, like so many do. Lots of magic forest symbolism. The protagonist says there's a forest in the west of Ireland that does not appear on any map. A forest that doesn't appear on any map that also happens to be a magical forest. Now, let's look up Ireland, because they chose to have this set in Ireland. No need for it to be, although there's rich legends that abound about the fae, the fairies, and wow, everyone's gifting memberships today. You guys are in a good gifting mood. Thank you on behalf of everyone. SB just donated 5 memberships. That was kind of you. All right, so let's check out Irish. What does Irish mean? What does Ireland mean, right? If we look into it, into the etymology of the word, we find over here, it's from the, oh man, let me get it a little bigger here. It's from the Proto-Indo-European. When you see this word pi, it stands for Proto-Indo-European, which means ancient Indo-European. So all of the Europe area and much of Asia and stuff. It comes from pi ver, or fertile, right? So Irish or Ireland means fertile land, literally fat, the fat land, the fertile land, the land that's impregnated with life. And it's appropriate because this represents, from my perspective, the magic land, the Phantom Island, at the center of the world, at the top of the world that we talk about quite often, the North Pole land. They say it draws in lost souls like moths to a flame, right? Or dirty homeless butterflies to a flame. It draws in lost souls. That's a reference to the lost tribes, right? So when we're talking about this island at the middle of the world, I'll show you it on a map here in just a minute. It puts out a signal to the center of the world, to return back to the heart, to return to Hyperborea or to the Garden of Eden, and the lost tribes pick up on this signal. Right? It seems this is what's indicated to me throughout much of the world's religions and spiritual writings and ancient records, myths, and legends galore, drawing in lost souls like moths to a flame, right? Attracted to the light. We're going to the light of the world, to the center of the world, where out of the sea, or mar, or mari, or mori, will be given birth out of this mountain, a light, a beam, a new line. So we see this haunted forest. It's all foggy, very dark. It's dark in this haunted forest at the center of the world. It's the Garden of Eden. It's all of these things, right? But it's very dark because it's so lush. The trees, there's so much vegetation in this place, untouched by humankind for a millennia or an age. And it's very dark because of that, right? It's also very magical for different reasons I'll go into. She says no one can say exactly what lies inside of this magical forest. And you see this guy running throughout the forest, much like Little Red Riding Hood, right? Wearing the red hood and everything. For those that wander in, and you see the guy running, never come back out, right? This is another trope. It's another motif that you'll see associated with this Phantom Island at the North Pole, that once you go in, it's next to impossible, not impossible, but improbable that you will be able to get out. There's different reasons for that, right? It's a contained little system that draws things into it when the doors are opened, but it's difficult to leave until those doors are opened once again. And those doors take on many forms. There's the Cliffs of Insanity, or the Raphaim mountain range that go all the way around and wrap around the island. There is electromagnetic conditions, right, that keep people from going near these electromagnetic barriers, or force fields, you could say. So this guy stops running. He's tired. He's in the middle of this forest, this magic forest, shrouded with fog. The fog, I believe, comes in through the pressure differential between the inner world, and then it creates a zephyr, or an inner earth or westerly wind that comes up out of the earth at Mount Meru and other places. There's other plasma volcanoes in that area too, I believe. But it creates such a strong pressure differential between the inner world and the surface world that it creates a bank of fog all the way around and surrounding this Phantom Island. He checks his watch. It's just after midnight. Just after midnight typically indicates just after the apocalypse. Midnight is typically symbolic of the apocalypse. When everything resets, when time resets and stuff, right? So he's just after the apocalypse getting to this island. And then he comes across this sign. It says, let me see if I can zoom in here, but it says point of no return. And this comes up quite often as well. Point of no return, and then the number 108 underneath that. Let me zoom it out a bit. It's kind of dark in some of these scenes, but the sign says 108, point of no return. Now, the point of no return traditionally are the Pillars of Hercules. The Pillars of Hercules are not, you know, some tall mountain like Gibraltar or something of that nature. Those have been, the original Pillars of Hercules have been projected upon those places, named in honor of the real pillars. You see here, the Pillars of Hercules are represented by pillars all the time. They're never represented by Gibraltar or a mountain or something of that nature, and they come straight up out of the ocean. This is an ancient coin. Let's zoom in on it for a second. You can see on the left here, in Latin, it says plus. That V is a U, okay, plus, and it means more. Voltra, or ultra, which means more beyond, right? So once you go beyond these two pillars, which, as you can see, something seems to stop here and shoot up out of it right here. These are not pillars made out of cement or man-made columns or Greco-Roman columns that someone just made in the ocean or anything like that. These are plasma volcanoes that emit their own beams of energy up on the side, acting as anode and cathode on either side of Hyperborea, which create the Hyperborean electrical arc that basically warms the island and has other applications as well. But this is the 1 and the 1. This is the 11. These are the boundaries. These are the outdoor markers. This is a het and a het in ancient Phoenician and Hebrew, or 8 and 8. To go between these two, to go beyond 88, or to pass the Pillars of Hercules, means you're going into a different world altogether, a place that has a feel like it has a different time to it. And you may experience time differently as well, because in this particular place, this magic forest, this magic land of plenty, It's said that time acts funny. Time slows down for people because they have cellular regeneration. There's so much electrical energy running throughout the atmosphere that it stimulates your collagen and elastin, and it promotes cellular regeneration of your actual skin, and it's the fountain of youth. These are two types right here. One is positive here, one is negative. Right? Here are the pillars of Hercules represented by a statue with Hercules in the middle. Hercules represents Atlas, someone who can hold up the world, right? This also represents Samson in the Bible, right? So he actually pushes these pillars apart and knocks everything down in those stories. But this is a cartoonification, okay? It's not actual pillars, like I said. It's not a human being that stands in between them. It is the energy of Mount Meru that is drawn in petroglyphs across the world, and cave drawings and stuff, rock drawings, rock carvings, as a stick figure man with his arms up, holding up the sky or holding up the moon or holding up some sort of inverted dome above him. Typically, if you see Atlas holding up the entire earth as a ball, that's a false Atlas. That's something that's just been cartoonified over time. In the background, you can see what looks like the pillar, the rock of Gibraltar. Okay, this is not a volcano. It's not a plasma volcano. This is just a high and lofty mountain. Okay, and there's much debate as to where the other pillar of Hercules would be if the rock of Gibraltar is one of them. I don't believe it is at all. Now let's go back, right? So the numbers that were on that sign, let's check out those numbers real quick. It says 108, nothing more, or point of no return. Now, once you get past this, it's the point of no return. You head into the indrawn seas of Hyperborea, of the Garden of Eden. There's 4 rivers that are indrawn, and the currents are said to be extremely fast. You can't fight against them. Not only that, but there is a huge magnetic mountain, also known in ancient times as a lodestone mountain, that would pull in anything that had metal attached to it. So there's countless stories of ships that were out at sea coming too close to one of these lodestone mountains, and the very nails themselves would pull the ship in the direction of these lodestone mountains, and they would increase in their knots, or the speed that the ship was traveling in, and smash right into these plasma volcanoes, causing the people to die or to be shipwrecked. Now, what was it? 108, right? The number? Yes, 108. So what is that in Gematria? If we add them all up, that's 9, right? 9 is interesting as a number. This is the early form of the number 9 over here on the left. It's both represented this way in Phoenician and the Paleo-Hebrew, or the early Hebrew. And then it evolved to these other glyphs over time, basically, representing a bread basket, a basket with a snake inside of it, and so on and so forth. I believe that this glyph represents the center of the world. It's the 9th letter, it's the tet, it's the exact same shape over here in the original as that the Garden of Paradise that's cross-sectioned by 4 rivers, right? The 9th letter, the tet, this is why the number 9 represents the best, something sacred, something different. It represents the gods. It represents angels oftentimes. And it also represents transformation, being on the verge or the cusp of something new, which is the 10s, right? Going from 9 to 10 and starting all over again, right? So it also represents starting all over again. It represents apocalyptic scenarios and stuff. So we've got this boundary that says point of no return, 108. And that guy just stopped there. And he says the sun's moved, and he's tracking the sun. 22 minutes left. 22 happens to be interesting because there's 22 minutes in the ancient Phoenician and Paleo-Hebrew alphabet. He says, come on, follow the light. Now, when they give instructions like this, I don't think the guy's talking to himself. If we're reading into the movies and we're listening to the deep esoteric knowledge that's being shared with us, the movie says to the protagonist, follow the light. To me, they're giving instructions. It doesn't have to be Hollywood. It doesn't have to be the elite. It doesn't have to be any physical human being. I believe that there is truth that resonates all throughout our world, that the truth cannot be hidden, that if someone tries to suppress it, it will manifest itself through different avenues. One of those avenues is our creative minds, our ability to recreate or to play or to imagine, right? Which is why imagination is crucial to being a truth seeker, in my opinion. So he says, follow the light. And he keeps on running through this dark forest. And he gets to another one of these signs. Oh, it's the same exact sign. So he just went in a big circle, right? So he checks his watch. It's like, I don't know, 6 hours later or something. And that brings us to the title, The Watchers, right? It's all going to make sense in a minute. Now, That's some other cutscene. That's like, meanwhile, and then it's going to show you the protagonist, this girl. She works at an animal shop, a pet shop of some sort. And there's a couple things happening here I want to point out. One is the television and the news story. This is what she's saying on the news. Ireland's sacred trees have been cut down. Ireland or Ireland. Ireland's sacred trees being cut down. This is all symbolic of those beams reversing direction and retracting, going down into the earth to charge once more for another millennia or another eon or age or epic or a long period of time. An age, right? So this the reference to the sacred trees being cut down is a reference to those beams of light, those pillars descending and going down into the bowels of the earth. But then over here, we've got this interesting little setup with these animals. And you'll notice the color of the light, right? The animals are trapped behind this glass. We can see them. I'm not sure if they can see us or not, but that'll come into play here in a minute. There's a snake right here. Looks like a lot of reptilian animals. Turtle. Notice the color though. This is a signature color of a sodium vapor lamp, right? So sodium basically meaning salt or something salty, and then vapor, right? Which is water that's gone up into the atmosphere like a fog or a mist. Now, if the day comes, keep in mind, our oceans are full of sodium or salt. They're salt water. Everyone knows this, right? The oceans will be removed one day. Where will they go? They will go up into the thirsty mouth of Kronos, which is a depressurization point up in the firmament. When the firmament cracks open, it creates atmospheric depressurization, which causes an increase of buoyancy, which means the objects on the surface where we are will float. Water is one of those things that will definitely float if it's not contained or kept in a cave or inside of someone's house or something. The water will start to rise. The ocean water is no exception. And because the ocean water is so saline or full of salt, all of the cosmic electricity that is released from beyond the dome, all of those cosmic radiation and electricity and thunderbolts of the gods and stuff pass through those waters because they have electrolytes in them, which is the salt basically, making it an excellent conduit for electricity to pass through. When these highly charged electrical thunderbolts of the gods pass through the ocean water that is floating up and out, it causes electrolysis, which means the electricity actually separates the ingredients that are held and locked within the water, releasing the sodium as one of those ingredients. Now, there's many different implications to this, okay? This is an alchemical wedding of sorts. So I'm just discussing one implication, one thing that it does, which is releasing that sodium into the air. During the depressurization, the actual air around us, the atmosphere, becomes very misty and fog-like because of the rapid depressurization, ripping the air apart. It causes it to become vaporous. So we have the mixing of that vapor with the sodium, and if you run electricity through that, then basically what you have is a natural version of this light, a sodium vapor canopy. It's a very interesting study. I highly recommend checking out. If you want to know more about the golden age and why it was a golden color and things of that nature, please research sodium vapor lighting, right? And how they work. And if you apply that to a worldwide scale, you'll understand better what I'm referencing right now. Now, here's the protagonist. I forgot the actress's name, but she works at the pet shop. And she's listening to the news, who goes on and says, stirring concerns over ecological impact, right? These sacred trees have been cut down. And so people are worried about how it's going to affect the ecology or the world and the life that's on this world. I'm telling you right now, if this is true, and there are these beams of life or light or plasma that shoot up out of the cavernous systems of the world, and they fill our atmosphere, strengthening it with electrical force and power for an entire age, that tends to contribute to life, to growth, to plant growth and life and food and abundance and cellular regeneration and things of that nature, right? But whenever they retract and they're cut down, these ancient trees are cut down, oh yeah, that's my next point. Then it stirs concerns about how it affects all life on this planet, right? Now, I just wanted to throw a picture of my daughter. This is my daughter Darian and me. This is us at the museum in Denver. She looks she looks very much like a prettier version, I think, of the protagonist here. So like the whole time I'm watching this movie, I'm like, that's like my daughter. Anyways, I love my daughter. Big shout out to Darian. I love you. Thank you for inspiring me. So we get back to the protagonist, and she's in her car, and she's talking to her sister on the phone. She has a twin sister. Her sister says, it's been 15 years since mom died. So I guess you decided not to come to mom's memorial, right? So she's in mourning. Now let's talk about the truth behind this, like the deeper level of mourning. There was a god called Tammuz, and there were other types of these plasma pillars that split at the top and turned into T shapes or hammers or cruciforms or whatever. Tammuz was one of those. And when Tammuz died, which means that beam retracted and went down into the bowels of the earth, the women mourned because they knew it was going to be the golden age was over. There was no more golden age. The light had disappeared from the world. It had gone down, taking all that energy with it as the world would the bowels of the earth would siphon energy from the surface over time, and it would lose it and lose it and lose it, which would add to exponentially increasing entropy, or the degradation of life up here on the surface world. So they were in constant mourning for the death of this pillar, or the breaking of this column, the falling of this column. Even within Freemasonry, they have like this whole broken column symbolism. It's the same exact thing. She said the choir sang Ave Maria, which means Hail Mary, which is interesting. In football, the Hail Mary is like the furthest you can go or pass or whatever, right? This is the ends of the earth. So when you run to the ends of the earth, right, beyond the Pillar of Hercules, or in between the 88 or the 11 or however you want to see it, that's like the Hail Mary, right? Mary is the, hey, welcome to my channel, mods. Hail Mary. Mary is another word for waters or lake or a large body of water, right? Mari or Mori. So hail to the lake. It's the lady in the lake, which is Jesus's mother, Mary, and so many other motifs. Now she takes off, but before she does, they zoom in on this missing picture. There's all these missing people. Now there's a part of this that sort of harkens to like all the missing people. I think they call them missing 411 or something. The people that go missing within like, national parks and whatnot, right? Man, you better be careful. Like, not only are there grizzly bears and there's animals and other things out in, you know, different natural dangers in the parks, the various parks of the world, the natural parks of the world, but there are cavernous systems and there are creatures. There are monsters exist. Okay, I'm telling you that. Like, I can't say, I don't want to say like 100%. But I'm very, very compelled to say I'm a believer in monsters, okay? Monsters that are good and monsters that are bad and monsters that are in between. There's monstrous creatures that live within the bowels of this earth that are altogether alien and different than we are. There's also those that live above and on the outside of the dome above us. And according to the myths and legends, some that are not friendly have, you know, had a reputation of eating humans, snatching them right up. Anyways, so she jumps into her car. She gets ready to take off. She's actually taking this bird. She has to go deliver this golden bird. So the bird's in the car. She takes off. She's got to drive about 100 miles. She comes up on this forest. This is going to be symbolically her entering into Eden or paradise or the magic forest, right? So she drives her car. She takes off, goes deep into this lush forest. You can tell now she's off the beaten path. She's on a dirt road, whereas over here she was on a paved road, right? And it shows her sort of zoning out and like kind of losing it. The movie makes a point of that this forest almost has like a sentience to it, where it affects people's minds and stuff. We'll talk about that in a bit too. I'll tell you the science behind why it affects people's minds. Oh, hey, thanks. Moi freestyle life. Thank you. I appreciate your comment. All right. So now her phone, they just zoom in on her phone real quick. The phone starts to mess up, right? Happens a lot in these movies. Especially you'll see this happen in a lot of like supernatural kind of movies, horror movies. And anytime there's ghosts, I mean, especially it disrupts the electronics. That's because these are electromagnetic phenomenon. You're going into a place that is highly electrically charged at the center of the earth, the navel of the earth, the life-giving place of the earth itself. So you'll see this in the movies all the time where the phones aren't working. Oh, the phones aren't working. all the time. And there's always something to do with electricity or an electrical phenomenon like ghosts and things of that nature. So she gets deeper into the forest. The sun goes down. The radio also starts to wig out, and the radio starts showing like all these weird glyphs and stuff on the sides of it. You see right there? So it shows all these runes and stuff on the radio, and then it goes out. The car shuts down. The electrical portion of the car shuts down. Nothing electrical works once she has gone past these pillars of Hercules, right? So the car shuts down, the phone shuts down, stops working. She's already kind of zoned out. So that means her brain is also being affected. The electromagnetic currents within her brain and synapses and all of that function very much similar to the radio and the phone, you know what I mean? So it affects how people think, and therefore their perceptions and what they perceive things as being in reality and how they see the world around them. They can easily become disoriented and confused if they don't stay sober-minded and vigilant and constantly run like a self-diagnostic, and you know what I mean? So she's like, what happened? And she gets out of her car. Bad idea. I'm already yelling at the movie. I know if she doesn't get out of the car, the movie probably won't happen. But she gets out of the car. Now notice all the fog. That's just low-lying fog, haunted, dark, thick forest. She comes to the point of no return. This is a different one. It's got the number 12 on it. Oro Lobo, the coyote of light. I think, isn't that what that means, right? Or I believe it means that. Anyways, continuing on. That's also a Mount Meru reference too, right? Because they call Mount Meru like the Coyote Mountain or the Wolf Mountain and stuff. Anyway, so she's deep in this forest. She's got her bird with her as well, the golden bird, right? And the ground starts to rumble, so there's earthquakes that seem to be happening. There's also creatures just below her feet, right? These otherworldly creatures, the Watchers, that we'll meet here in a bit. Gets a little dark here, but if you look off into the distance, you see this little cabin. A cabin in the woods, right? We broke down that movie called A Cabin in the Woods. There's always a cabin in the woods, whether it's Friday the 13th or A Cabin in the Woods or The Evil Dead, right? There's always like a lone house, a lone cabin, which a cabin just means a container. That's all it means. Like a cabinet where you put your food, it means a container, okay? There's a container in the middle of this haunted forest or magical forest, which is Mount Meru is the container, okay? Now, she's like freaking out. The lady that opens up the door, she's like, get in here, hurry up, because there's monsters coming. So she runs into this room and check it out. It's the same color, the same amber golden glow as what her creatures back at the pet shop, they themselves were in, right? Now check this out. It gets more interesting. So she's down there inside of this golden glowing room, which also kind of reminds me of the yellow color of the back rooms. If you're interested in creepypasta on the internet, that's an interesting deep dive. And I have done a video about the back rooms too. Can't remember what playlist it's on. She says, what's happening? What is this place? And there's 3 other people in there. The older lady says, we call it the coop, right? It's Mount Meru, symbolically speaking. She says, we're just like you, lost. The lost tribes being called to one place, gathered together on the mountain of meeting, which is what Mount Meru is. It's got many different names, affectionately. It's called all kinds of stuff across time and by different cultures, but it's the mountain of meeting, okay? She says, I don't understand. Everyone starts standing in a line and they face this gigantic mirror. She says, well, is someone coming here? Why are we standing here? The old lady says, we call them the Watchers. And you can hear that there's these creatures called the Watchers shrieking off in the distance, much like banshees, which this is related to as well. In Irish folklore, there's also the story of the banshees, which essentially is like a screaming ghost. Okay, electromagnetic filaments that fly through the air, or ball lightning itself. If it's large enough, you'll be able to hear it. It makes a sound. Electricity makes sound. It makes a crackling, high-pitched sound when it's a small electrical, current. But when it's larger, that sound becomes amplified. It's not so high-pitched. It's got more bass to it. It sounds more like voices or running water or things of that nature, as it's also described in the Bible. So she says they're coming. Now, the Watchers are coming. The Watchers once existed a long time ago. Let's go all the way back to the Old Testament of the book of Genesis, chapter 6. And the Watchers were on the earth during those times, etc., along with giants and other things too. They will return. What once was will be again, if time is in fact cyclical, which I believe that it is. If the things we experience are repetitive here within this world, under the dome, under the sun, that they repeat themselves over and over. If one better understands ancient history and the mysteries that have been shrouded from what I call our ancient oblivion, then one can much easier predict the future, interpret dreams, and see what's right around the corner and the things yet to come, because they will happen again. If you understand that what you've already walked past, you can understand what is to come. Okay? If you understand the past, you can understand the future much better. The Watchers cannot come in. They just want to look at you, he says. So the Watchers cannot come in. This little tiny room, as I've said many times, is a microcosmic version. Although this whole little cabin represents Mount Meru, which is a house in and of itself, or a container, or a box in and of itself. It's also a microcosmic version of our entire world, of the whole world. The Watchers watching us, waiting, right? They can't come in. Why? Because there's electromagnetic barriers and physical barriers all the way around this world, all the way up there around the sky and wrapping down underneath into the bowels of the earth that prevent animals, creatures, giant insects, humanoids, etc., from leaving their positions and coming into ours, becoming what I call phantazoids, or fractalverse travelers, right? Going from one cosm to another cosm. So they're standing in front of this gigantic mirror, each face to face with themselves. The mirror represents, what do you guys think in the chat? Yeah, I know you guys have probably seen enough of my episodes to guess what the mirror represents, right? So I'm not going to say right away. I want to give you guys some time. I'm going to see who's paying attention and who knows what the mirror represents here on my channel, at least as I teach it through, fringe and innovative theories that I come up with and that I have. They're not mine, by the way. They're just, everything is ancient. Nothing belongs to anyone. Everything belongs to itself, and everything is shared by all. That's just my own philosophy, okay? So they're all standing in front of the mirror, this perfectly crystal clear mirror. And they said, yes, they are. It's a window on the other side. So on the other side of this mirror, these creatures called the Watchers can see them, but they can't see the Watchers. It's a two-way mirror. Or maybe it's called a one-way mirror, but it's one of those mirrors that one party can see the other party standing on the other side. But one of them can only see their own reflection. It says, yes, it's a window on the other side. They're here. And they can hear these, scratching and moving about on the other side of this gigantic mirror, which acts as one of the walls to this room, to this house. Now, we've got guesses in the chat as to what the mirror represents. Truth Detective says the sky. Jojo says the portal. Scrying mirror, a black mirror, the firmament. That's what I was looking for. So Maris double M, congratulations to you. Truth Detective also follows it up with the dome. Yes, I believe that the mirror represents the dome. It's the highest, hardest glass ceiling. It is also the walls, because it comes down on the sides, the walls of our world, and the ceiling itself. It's like a two-way mirror, basically, or can act like that. Now, she's standing in front of the mirror. She hears all the creatures moving about on the other side. She can't see them, but she knows that they're there. Right now, as I'm doing this live stream, whoever you are, whatever part of the earth where you reside right now, we're all sitting here, and there are other creatures and entities above us and below us waiting. They will eventually come into this world, if I'm correct, and I think I am. They will eventually come into this world when those barriers come down. And there will be a mixing and a great war like never seen before, as you have giants and huge insects and otherworldly creatures, phantazoids, humans, and whatnot, all vying for the same land, the surface world where we live, or Mount Meru, which is this place of safety. So she says, what is that? What are they doing? And it sounds like applause. It sounds like people clapping, right? Do you ever hear applause, what it sounds like? If you have like thousands of people clapping their hands, you know what else that sounds like? Electrical buzzing. It also sounds like rushing water. These are descriptors of the voice of God in the Bible. It describes it as, I don't know if it describes it as applause, but applause definitely sounds like static electricity, rushing water, things of that nature, right? Because these creatures on the outside, they represent a couple of different things. Actual physical humanoids that we'll talk about in a bit, alien creatures, and non-physical, right? The formless ones, the smokeless fire, jinn, and Plasma, basically. It's electricity, right? All right, so they say, welcome to the show. They're all standing in front of this mirror. This is a view from the outside in the magic forest looking into their world, or outside of the dome looking down upon the earth where we live, where it's all lit up from the focal points above us, right? Now, all this rumbling continues. They zoom out. You can see they're just dead center in the middle of this lush forest, represented, you know, symbolically speaking, as the Garden of Eden. She's just, I don't know what's going on, right? Now, the golden color representing the golden age. Now, just because it was a golden age does not mean there were no monsters. There was nothing to fear. There was nothing to be afraid of. It was a lot of danger during the golden age. Research that particular time, you'll find there was all sorts of strange and hideous, monstrous kinds of creatures, but there was a balance to that. There were also superheroes with super strength and abilities and telepathy and all these other things too, right? So there's a balance between the two. But in general, compared to today, it was a better age. It was a better time to live. It promoted life instead of taking it away and sucking it from us, causing us to need, causing a rise and a hunger to develop within this world. That hunger is a lack of energy. That's why we eat. That's why we even have all of that, right? That's why I got this popcorn right here. Because we're lacking energy. We're running on low. We're running on fumes at this point. And when that day comes, when our atmosphere is re-energized, then sleep will be a thing of the past, I believe. So will hunger. So she escapes out of that room. She ends up getting out. She runs through the forest. She comes to a clearing, and just forest everywhere, all around. She's just kind of hopeless, like, damn, where am I going to go? I don't even know where I am. I'm lost. The only place she knows of is where she just came from, which is that little cabin in the woods. The old lady jump scares her. She's like, you're not the first one that's tried getting out. Now, symbolically, this is getting out of our entire world, right? But also getting out of the Garden of Eden. There will come a time, I know it's paradise and everything, but the pendulum swings both ways. Right now, the pendulum is swinging towards a dystopian, a utopian dystopia. Okay, dystopia means like bad times, okay? The opposite of a perfect society, okay? That's the time we're in now. And that pendulum is swinging towards the utmost, the worst it can possibly be, basically. Once it gets to there, it swings back rather quickly, and it will hit the golden age, which is right down at the middle, and then it'll swing up to the other side. That will be the worst part of the golden age time, which is a dystopian utopia. Okay, so believe it or not, you can have issues and problems during the golden age at its extreme time before the next apocalyptic cycle as well. She says you're not the first one that's tried getting out. The forest has been known to cause hallucinations. How does it cause hallucinations? Well, we talked about how there's a strong electrical energy that can interfere with your electrical activity within your very brain itself. But there are also gases that are being released all over the place, right? Inner earth gases. There's also things that are degrading on the floor of the surface. I imagine walking through this forest would be very lush and very soft on the forest floor because of all of the stuff that has just fallen and, you know, decomposed and stuff. And that decomposition allows for more gases to interrupt. So there's probably a lot of different gases and electromagnetics involved. She says if you're not careful, it can drive you mad. It can mess with you. While in these woods, we are prey. This is also the woods that they go through on their way to Oz. Okay, this whole story of Oz is the same story that you're watching now. It's the same story as almost every movie we've ever covered. It's the never-ending story. It's the same story told from different angles and different perceptions and different times and things of that nature. It's the same story. We are the prey. Yes, so humans they can't rely on their technology. It doesn't work. And that's really what makes us the gods of this age, of now, of the modern world. And when the modern world collapses, people will go on relic hunts, and they'll be looking for, you know, smartphones and, you know, gadgets that we created today, and I use we loosely, to help them in the time to come. The point of no return, they get to another one of these outdoor markers, which is Chet. Remember that. It's the number 8, 44, 8, right? Outdoor boundary, outdoor marker, outdoor pillar, the pillar of Hercules, etc. Positioned all the way across the forest in a nearly perfect circle are these markers, these boundaries. she says, but if you choose to step across this line, there's no turning back, right? You can't, once you leave Eden, you can't come back into it, traditionally speaking. Now, we get back in, when it's daytime, they can go outside, okay? Because the monsters, I'll explain this in a minute, but they're photophobic. They can't be in the sunlight. So they can go outside during the daytime. When it's nighttime, they go back inside. Because it's dark outside and it's light on the inside, they only see their own reflection in this glass, which is the mirror. But whenever it's brighter outside than it is inside, they can see beyond, which would be akin to us looking up at the sky and seeing the true version of what we imagine space should look like, or the heavens, right? Which is possibly something that you can look forward to in the time to come. 12 hot strangers. She's watching some reality show. 12 hot strangers trapped in a house. Ooh. So this is really meta. She's trapped in a house, right? And that house in Ireland is also an enclosed system under a dome, and there's all of us are trapped in a house. This is us right now watching her watching us on the TV. Essentially, it's fractal in nature. Okay, trapped in a house. That's us. The world will be watching their every move. Right. So this is a reference to the Watchers watching us. Right? Imagine the light shining down on this world, moving around in a circle over the plane that we live on. It really illuminates it. It lights it up, right? So it's easier to see if you're way high up. You can see the whole thing. Who will find love? Who will make it out? And then it shows the name of the show is called Layer of Love, or LOL. That's funny. This is our world. Welcome to our world. That's us today. Okay, and I use the term us loosely as well. Now, she goes out with this other girl, the other survivor or lost person who's there, and she picks up this plant and she goes, oh, it's Prunella vulgaris. Interesting that she just happens to know the Latin name of this plant, right? Well, I looked up this plant and it says here that it has amazing health benefits. Let me zoom in on this so you can actually read it along with me. Prunella vulgaris has amazing health benefits. It has antiviral properties. It suppresses allergies. It can heal wounds. It may help treat diabetes and treat herpes. If you have that, you might want to check out this flower. Soothes sore throats. It heals wounds. It supports the immune system. It protects skin cells from sun damage. Antiviral against herpes and HPV, this says. It may have anti-inflammatory properties, may contain cancer-fighting properties, the self-heal herb to strengthen the kidneys and diuresis, whatever that is. This is what it looks like. The movie's showing this to us. Let me zoom out a bit. It's prepping you, or me. I'll just speak for myself, but it's prepping me. I don't know why I can't show you the whole thing, but this is what it looks like. So remember this. This might come in handy one day. It's got a little stem, and then it's got these little, spear-looking leaves that shoot out on each side, and then it's got like this stalk in the middle with these purple flowers that shoot out on the side. If you can remember these things, movies can be very helpful to you. Wouldn't that be something if your life was saved one day because some emergency happened and you're in a lot of pain or something, and you're like, oh, Prunella vulgaris, I remember that from the movie. Every part of that flower is edible. You can make teas and stuff out of it, and you can just eat it. She says, we're not supposed to go down to the burrows. Anyways, my point about that is whenever the movie shows you apocalyptic scenarios, I also personally pick up on little hints, little breadcrumbs that the movies also say. Like, hey, I suggest this, or hey, you might want to look out for this. Here's an omen. Here's a sign. Here's a medicinal plant or something. So one of the rules, they say we're not supposed to go close to the burrows. The burrows are these holes in the ground. So they walk up to them. They say they're all over the forest, connected underground like a system of tunnels. And then they show you this little hole in the ground. Now, you're starting to see the Alice in Wonderland symbolism here, hopefully. Okay? That is not a fiction book. I mean, that's me speaking personally, but I'm telling you, I'm pretty compelled to say, I'm pretty convinced. Alice in Wonderland is a true story. Okay? That's why it resonates with us so much. This is Alice's rabbit hole, or one of them, okay? So they say it's where the Watchers go during the daylight hours. So these creatures that come up out of the ground. This is also shown to us in the movie Time Machine, right? The adaptation of H.G. Wells's novel Time Machine, where they had these underground creatures that were very pasty white-skinned creatures that live down inside the earth, and they come up and they snatch people or whatever. Now, she goes back to camp. The sun's about to get set, so they're going to go inside in a minute. She says, listen, you should know there are a few rules. And then all of a sudden, in unison, all three of those other lost people, they speak in one voice, right? That's telepathic. That's telepathy. It's not like they plan that, like, hey, let's creep her out. Let's all speak at the same time, right? They're sharing telepathy, okay? All three of them together say, do not turn your back on the mirror, right? Do not disappear from the sight of those who are watching from the other side of the mirror. Meaning, don't go underground, okay? Do not open the door after dark. That's just a good idea after the apocalypse, and in many situations, don't open the door after dark, right? Do not go near the burrows. The burrows are these underground tunnels. This is something that your governments have already done. They've made your cave systems off limits. You're not allowed to go down into the earth. You're not allowed to. It's against the law. In whatever country you guys live in, I promise you it's probably against the law in some way, shape, or form for you to just go explore the inner earth all by yourself or with a group of people without signing a waiver and getting permission and letting everyone know and declaring it, and you know what I mean? No, that's not allowed by your system that you live in today. Can you still do it? Yep, you sure can. But it's frowned upon, right? And we've talked about many different reasons why. Not just because you're going to invade the home of those that live down below us, but there's energy down there. They don't want you to have access to that energy. Always stay in the light. Why is that? Because these creatures are not surface dwellers. They're not used to a focal point that we call the sun. It burns them. It actually, when they come in contact with sunlight, it physically burns their skin like firewood, or like fire would do, right? This is called photophobia. Now, technically, it means a fear of the light, but the fear stems from the very real fact and the actual fact that the sun is actually burning them physically. It's actually burning them, so they develop an actual fear of the sun. This is where the stories of vampires come from. Vampires are the same as elves, or the Elu, or of the gods, is what that really means. Fairies, elves, all types of things, right? That we are in their territory. So she says, remember, we're in their territory. This is the place of the gods. It's the meeting place of the gods. This is a magical place. This is not your normal Southlander world that we live in today. The Watchers allow us to live because we follow their rules. Now, this is another thing that we have in association with angels and gods of ancient times, giving rules to the humans, saying, hey, follow these rules or you're dead. Basically, right? Well, that's because humans are stupid, as evidenced by this reality TV show, right? I can totally understand why, if there are some sort of higher beings, whether they be physical or ethereal or whatnot, I can understand why they might chisel out and be like, hold on, do not steal from other people, right? Good people know this. You don't have to be told this. This is stuff that comes naturally to many of you out there. Many of you who have an energetic signature that resonates with the lost tribes of the tree of life. Okay. If your energy resonates with earth energy, you don't need to be told all this stuff. You don't need to be given rules on how to live and stuff. Evil people need to be given those instructions, because evil people, like these people, need rules to abide by. Or otherwise, they'll just act like idiots, and they'll steal, they'll kill, they'll destroy, they'll tear things down, they'll ruin everything they come across. Michelle, hey, what's up? Michelle Rayner, welcome to my channel. High five. So this is what the guy sounds like on TV, this little British trendy kid. And he goes, like, Chloe's just like so pang. Like when we was locking lips, I felt like the universe just colliding. It felt right. Do you know what I mean? Like this guy, this attitude, not only is it just him, okay, because this is real. This is all acting on a movie, but it definitely reel that in. This represents not just, oh, stupid shows we watch, but stupid people we are, okay? The world you live in is that right now. There is no discussion, for the most part, of extraterrestrials or inner earth beings or what is the meaning of life or why are we here or plasma physics or ghosts or the supernatural, the Wolfman, the reality between all of the fictions and comparative mythology or any of the things. I mean, it's so much more than that. But this is what our world has become. This is what our world is full of. So our world is full of it, in my opinion. Do you know what I mean? It just felt right, blah, blah, blah. And you got people out there. Oh my God, he really enjoyed kissing that girl. Oh my, is he going to ditch her? Is he going to keep her? Oh my God, right? Please, Apocalypse, please come. That's just me, okay? Anyways, so they show you the outside of this little cabin, the window. They also show you this weird Matrix chair. This is like Morpheus's chair right there. I don't know what's going on there, but this is pretty much Morpheus's chair that's sitting right there. And they have this old phonograph as well, right? Really interesting stuff. Anyways, so the girl walks up to the mirror. She knows it's a two-way mirror. This is how they work, okay? There's one side of the mirror is reflected light. So it's the light side of the mirror. On the light side of a two-way mirror, the light reflects right back at you because it's very bright. But on the dark side, it doesn't reflect back, so you can see through it, basically. There's also a thin amount, a minuscule amount of aluminum or metal that's in the mirror itself too, right? So could there be a small amount of metallic debris within the dome itself? Possibly. Could the dome act as a two-way mirror that on our side we don't really see past it right now because of all the light from the focal points, right? I don't know. Possibly. So she goes up to the mirror, and this is very reminiscent of Alice in Wonderland, Alice through the looking glass symbolism. She touches the mirror. Now, this is practical in real life. There are some shady places, hotels across the world, that have two-way mirrors and you don't know it. If you ever do go traveling, test out your mirrors by doing what she is doing. Touch it. If your fingertip or fingernail touches your other fingernail, your reflection, that's a two-way mirror and somebody's watching you. If it doesn't and there's a little space between and they can only go so close, right, like that, and they get close but they don't touch, that's a regular mirror and you're safe, okay? So just a tip from me to you. This is Alice through the looking glass. Alice traveling beyond the dome, leaving this world and going to a different land, a different place. When she gets to the other side of the looking glass, she's tiny. Everything is gigantic around her because we are tiny, okay? We have shrunken in size, in stature, in lifespans, in health, in everything, in intelligence, over time, getting smaller and smaller, weaker and weaker, more sickly and more sickly. And unfortunately, in academics, they teach the exact opposite of that, which is, oh, we're getting so much better. We're better. Cavemen back then, cavemen. We have smartphones. Yeah, well, you need them because you're not smart, right? Not you, but the general population are pretty dumb. So they need smartphones. And the phones aren't even intelligent, okay? For those of us who have some semblance of intelligent, your smartphones are not smart. They're pretty dumb. Anyway, so on the other side of the dome, she sees the fractal verse, which is all this gigantic, way bigger than you ever thought it could be, right? Way closer, huge worlds, plasma conduits and highways and hallways and, how do I describe this? I'm just using imaginative terminology right now, but space is way bigger on the inside. Okay, once you actually go, it's just like the TARDIS. Once you open it up and you go out there, you'll see it's way bigger and you feel tiny in comparison. Right? It's not like everything, right now everything out there looks tiny because we're not looking out there. You're looking at little focal points under the dome. Okay, and they look tiny and they're pretty small. Okay, they're not gigantic worlds billions of miles across or suns and stuff like that. Okay, but the reality on the other side is that it's more like halls, huge walls everywhere, lining everything, and there's just electrical fields and dark lights and neon glowing ambient plasma lights and this and that, and it's beautiful. So it's heaven. So anyway, she goes up to the wall, the ice wall, and she puts her ear on it. and she's listening. She's trying to listen in to get a message from the other side or some information from the other side. She's trying to listen into the watchers, right? So she presses her ear up against this wall, which figuratively is our dome. This is what your governments do right now. They go to the edge of our world, which is Antarctica, and they figuratively press their ears up against the dome to try to listen, to try to send messages to the watchers on the other side, to try to get information from the watchers on the other side of the dome. Some operations and projects you may have heard of that sounds damn similar to the movie we're watching. Operation Looking Glass is one. Project, the hypothetical Project Looking Glass. There's a difference between the two, really. Operation High Jump, trying to jump up as high as you can. Another dome reference there. Antarctica. Here's another Operation High Jump patch. Operation Fishbowl, another glass reference, another dome glass reference, right? All of these things are, I'm telling you, they're not going to tell the populace. They're not. I'll tell you because most people don't believe me, and that's fine. Okay, that's totally okay. I don't have 100 million subscribers. I've got 100,000 subscribers, which, by the way, high five. I think that's awesome. But even out of 100,000 subscribers, most people are just going to probably just find entertainment. They'll be like, oh, that's interesting. And then they'll forget about it the second they walk away from this video. And it'll just be like a little thing they do to ground themselves every once in a while. They won't take it seriously. Nobody's going to like prepare for the plasma apocalypse. No one's, not many people are taking notes on how to actually get back to the Garden of Eden, Hyperborea, extend their lives. And I know it. So I'm free to talk about it because I know no one's going to take me up on this offer. Okay. Some will, okay, but most probably won't. Anyways, the government knows this stuff, all right, is what I'm saying. Seems to me like they know the things that I'm telling you and have told you, and I'll keep telling you and sharing, which is just my path, my walk, my perspective, and my research, and my feelings too. They know these things. They are in commune with demons, with otherworldly entities, with fairies, with gods, with angels, with however you want to describe it. Now, they go to one of those burrows and they look down and they show you this little hole of light, and it's this tunnel that goes straight down. Oftentimes, I've pointed this out in the movies, they'll show you a scene that looks exactly like this. How many movies can you guys name in the chat where you see something that looks exactly like this? Darkness all the way around, and then what seems to be a hole that looks straight up at the firmament or the sky, which usually has some trees behind it representing like cracks in the firmament, little branches and stuff like that, right? This is the rabbit hole. Oftentimes they'll show you little roots that stick out, just like you see some roots right here. The real rabbit hole, this is an electrical tunnel. This is the Cycros Cave or the Cave of Zeus. This is within Mount Meru. There's probably residual leftover energy still in there in the form of little plasma filaments, which come off of the walls or the interior of Mount Meru, looking like the roots of the world tree or Yggdrasil, or the tree of life, etc., so on and so forth, at the Axis Mundi. Right? How many people can remember? Oh, the ring. Yes. Kimberly F says the ring. Yeah, the ring definitely shows this. There's many. Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, there's many. I need a compilation one of these days. If you guys ever show a compilation of like this shape, send that to my email, my business email. I would appreciate it because I'll totally share it. All right, so anyways, this chick, Alice, basically goes down into the rabbit hole, right? So she has to. You already knew she was going to do this. She's already looked at the mirror. There's all this Alice in Wonderland references. She goes down into the rabbit hole, which is going down into Yggdrasil, down into the safety of the mountain. There's this blue light that shines down, as you can see here too, right? Always this sort of pale blue, bluish green sort of colored light. This is in Aladdin. I mean, this is in a lot of movies too. She's within the Cave of Wonders right now. The lamp would be here if the lamp is symbolic of the light that comes up out of Mount Meru and stuff. And then she starts looking at the wall. It's really dark, so I'm going to zoom in here. On the wall, all these creatures, the Watchers, they've put all these little trinkets of humanity, and some of them are pretty old and across time. There's like a newspaper. There's, I don't know what this thing looks like, a hood of a car or something, right? Jake Davis, music. Hey, gave me $5. Thank you. You're very intelligent. Thank you for all your do. Well, that's super kind of you. I appreciate it, Jake. Now, if this was a Disney movie, she would be at this very moment the Little Mermaid, and these would be who's its and what's its and gadgets and all that stuff, right? So she picks up a newspaper. It's dated 1992, so it's showing you that some of this stuff is pretty dated. She also picks up this camera, this camcorder. It's really hard to see right there, and this is a rabbit. This is a little velveteen stuffed animal rabbit. You knew there had to be a rabbit down here, right? Follow the white rabbit, right? Into the rabbit hole, into the place of safety, to Wonderland. Now she looks into the darkness and there's this hand that reaches out towards her. But 1, 2, let's count those fingers up, shall we? How many fingers we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you know there's a thumb somewhere down here, right? Because that's how hands work, right? So this is a 6-fingered man. That's from The Princess Bride. The 6-fingered man is a shout out basically to the Nephilim, or to the Watchers, or to the Anakim, or the giants of old. They had 6 fingers on their hands. They actually, their way of counting went by 6s. According to the myths and the legends, they counted by 6. They had a hexadecimal system, which is counting by 6s. So you'll find that a lot in ancient history too. Now, as the hand goes into the light, hold on, let me show you here. As the hand goes into the light, it starts to degrade. It starts to burn. So the hand is actually being burned. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then thumb right there. See? The hand's being burned by the light. This is photophobia. This is where Tolkien got his legend for the orcs and anything that lives underground and they can't see the sunlight and all that stuff. That it's real. It's not just symbolic of like, well, the light from the sun represents goodness and prosperity and peace and the good side, and they live in the darkness, which represents, yes, there's that side to it, but it's also an actual very physical, real thing that happens called photophobia, where the sun burns things. And there are myths and legends across time where the sun fell from its place in the sky and burned the earth, right? And that will happen again. If it happened before, I believe it will happen again. Now, they're trying to hook up this little camcorder they found down there. They say the electronics break down out there, as we discussed. Somehow they work in here, though. The professor, this guy who created this little cabin in the woods, must have created some sort of power source. My best guess is that it's underneath us, he says. The power source, of course, would come from underneath them because the earth has a heart to it. It has what is called in this book written over 100 years ago, the smoky god. Okay, it is where all the plasma collects, where all the electromagnetic activity goes in as it charges. The earth is charging right now on the inside. That's why they have their golden age on the inside right now. They have an abundance of life. And they're not going to want to stay. Think about that. So let's say that the world underneath us is charging, and therefore they have all of the energy right now, and therefore all of the life. Let's say they know what you and I know, what we're discussing right now, and then we go through an electromagnetic reversal, a polarity shift. And they're like, oh, all our energy is going to leave the inner earth and it's going to go to the surface. Where do you think they're inclined to go? To the surface, right? Inner earth creatures coming up to the surface. Gog and Magog and the locusts of Revelation and whatnot. Now, some guy's outside claiming to be one of them, and he's like, help me, I need in, blah, blah, blah. And this lady stands in front of the door. She's like, we do not open the door after sunset. I don't care. Nobody's getting in, okay? I can understand that. I can relate to that. She has other reasons as well. And then the Watchers hate this, so they start banging on this mirror, and it shatters, or it cracks, which is an omen, which is symbolic of our dome cracking, possibly, at this very moment, that it's developing weaknesses. And one day it will burst open. She says, we'll find another way out. So when the next day came, they were trying to find a way out or whatever. And she's like, we'll find another way out. Okay. There is a way out of paradise. There is a way out of this world as well. You don't have to be trapped in this world. Now this girl has a flashback back to the time when her and her sister were walking through this field with her mother. She's a twin. So this is the twin symbolism. Remember when I showed you the Pillars of Hercules? Those are the twins. Oftentimes it's a boy and a girl. If not, it's just two twins because they look just like each other. They're not actual humans or anything. They're not real fleshly people. It's the two witnesses of the book of Revelation. This is the reason why there's so many twins. I mean, there's two other reasons, right? Physically, this is what happens too, with cloning and stuff. But anyways, the twin symbolism typically is the anode and the cathode on either side of that place, right? Anyways, let's continue on. So they're walking through, they get to another one of these little points of no return signs. So she starts drawing it. She's drawing everything she sees. She's in this weird world, a whole other alien place. And she has this book. I don't even know where she got this book, but she has this book and she's drawing in it. She's writing all the stuff she comes across. She draws this strange marker, this outdoor boundary, right? And then she finds a plant and she draws the plant. Now you might think, so what? But when you're in a new environment and a new world and a different place that's altogether alien from the place you came from, this is wise to do, especially if you have some sort of artistic ability. Some of you out there have been like, well, I'm not going to have super strength after the apocalypse and I don't really have any abilities. Or if you can draw, even mediocre drawings, you'll be of use because you can make bestiaries. You can make little travelogues that have pictures and stuff and record the things you come across so that when you see a plant, you can record it, what it looks like, and then you can write down as you're slowly, hopefully, licking it, allowing time to pass, tasting it a little bit at a time, and going through the proper motions. You don't just eat a random plant and cross your fingers and hope you don't die or whatever. But then you can learn about it. Okay, this is how you learn. Which also reminds me of another mysterious manuscript called the Voynich manuscript. Inside of this weird book, full of strange and mysterious language that no one has deciphered to my knowledge thus far. I don't think this page on the right is actually from the Voynich. It might be, but this one on the left looks like it is. Full of weird plants, otherworldly plants and animals and strange things, right? I think that this is some sort of a ancient bestiary or travelogue from somebody that was traveling who made it outside of or into the Garden of Eden, right? And they have altogether different language. They babble. They speak in gibberish, just like barbarians were said to have, or the Tatarians, right? The Tatars. Now they go back into the forest. Oh, so she sees in the forest there's one of those watchers, right? It's hard to see because it's dark, but it looks kind of like the old lady that's in there trapped with them. And when it zooms in, she says, "It looked like me." These watchers have the ability, we learn, to shapeshift and to emulate humans, to try to look just like another human. She says everything was kind of off about it. That's how I knew it wasn't a human, because it had my features, but those features were exaggerated. They were cartoonified, you could say, right? The Watchers are a very ancient species, says the old woman. The things of legend and lore. They go by many names, changelings, right? Now, let me point this out. Two different things. One, physical humanoids. Two, ethereal phenomenon like electricity, plasma, specifically plasma. The root of plasma comes from the word plasm, okay, which means moldable or a mold or something that is put into a certain shape or is able to change shapes. That's why plasma is called that. That's why plastic is also called that, right? They're shapeshifters by definition and by nature. The winged people, two different things. Physically, could possibly have had wings. Humans have tailbones. Humans can grow horns, as I've already shown to you guys many times. Could we grow wings? That's a possibility. I'm not going to throw that away. But also, if it's ethereal, they fly through the air. They're winged serpents. They're wonderful, fiery worms and stuff that fly through the air. Fairies. Two different forms. The physical humanoid version of it, right? Otherworldly humanoid fractalverse travelers. And then the electromagnetic phenomenon, which sounds like it's singing. It can copy voices and mimic you and stuff. Now, they move things around and the carpet reveals that there's some sort of door underneath the floor. It's a square. There's that square from the beginning of the movie again. A container, right? So there is a door underneath them. They open up this little thing and there's like a safe. Now, this shape we've seen when we broke down the movie 9. Remember that? Remember this shape right here? This sort of flux capacitor shape, right? This is the VAV. It's crooked right now, but it's that Y shape, okay? And then there's a circle around it, but this is that VAV shape, the Y shape, the tent peg shape, the ancient number 6, basically, as well. And we saw that when we broke down the movie 9. Now they open it up. So this is them going down into Yggdrasil, into the Rupus Negra and Mount Meru, etc. And then the glass shatters. You see that? I always watch with the captioning because I get so much more. The glass shatters and you see all the glass all over the place. This is symbolic that they have gone into Mount Meru, the place of safety, when the apocalypse happens, which means the uncovering of our world. An actual physical uncovering. Not like, oh, it's like my spirit is just lifted and it's like, you know, everyone feels better and it's like a very hippie kind of attitude that we all have all of a sudden. Maybe those things too, but along with those comes actual physical apocalypse or opening up or a ripping of the veil between our world and the fractal verse beyond us, okay? An actual physical sky blowing apart event, okay? Which is always shown to you in the movies by glass breaking. Every time, almost every time. Right, so the glass shatters. This is the firmament breaking open. The monsters will come in. The otherworldly creatures that I call phantazoids will flood into this world. The humans will go underground. They'll go into hiding for many years. They go down into Mount Meru, or the Hollow Earth, and he says, wow, this was underneath us the whole time. This is going to be many of your reactions. If you get to one of these places of power, underground cavernous systems, your mind's going to be blown when you get into an opening where it opens up and you can see that there's like atmosphere and stuff down there. There's so much room down there, and a lot of stuff grows. Think about it. If they're going through their golden age right now and we go down in there, then we're going to go down in there during a time when they have all this food and plant life and all this stuff that's growing and huge animals and stuff too. He says, look at all this food, right? Down under our feet in Agartha. Now, they find this computer with the professor who created this place. He doesn't represent a human at all. He represents more of like a godlike being. Professor Rory Kilmartin. So, let's break this name down, right? Because this guy represents a godlike being. We're going to break it down. Rory means, it's an Irish name, and it means Red King, okay? Red King, Old Irish or Irish. The Red King. Rory Kilmartin. Okay, let's check that out. You might think kill just means like to kill somebody. There's a connection to it. I'll explain it to you. Let's break it down 2 words at a time. Kill and then Martin. Rory is the Red King. The Red King is up above. Okay, the Red King represents that inverted dome, which is at the apex of the firmament that glows red when we go through our next polarity shift. Stephanie Cook in the chat has been a member for 10 months and says, great to see everyone here. Thanks, Jay. Well, it's great to see you too. All right, so Rory, the Red King. Kilmartin, let's check that out. Kiel comes from many words. Middle Dutch, kiele, Proto-Germanic, kaliz, Middle Dutch, killen, which means to be ice cold. Okay, so that word kill, K-I-L, to be ice cold. And by extension, when you kill someone, they become ice cold, right? As cold as ice, having a heart of ice, etc. Killer, down here, if you look a little further down, it says cold-hearted. So a killer, or to kill, means to be cold-hearted yourself or to make someone else's heart cold or go cold, right? They become stiff, rigor mortis sets in, etc., right? So kill means cold or chill or frozen, etc. And then Martin, right? Is that what it said? Kill Martin? Yeah, kill Martin. So Martin is related, the name and the word Martin is represented, it's Mars own, like the word Martian, basically. It's also Mars or of Mars, Marshon. And it comes from this word, merg, in the Proto-Indo-European. Let me zoom out a bit. See, merg? Now, if we zoom in, it says here, meaning boundary or border. And it's related to words like march, marshes, landmarks, Denmark. It also implies a trace or an impression, units of measurement, a marque, a marquee, remarkable, etc., right? So a boundary or a border that is cold, a frozen boundary or a border of the Red King. This is describing the Arctic, okay? For me, it's describing the Arctic Circle, a frozen cold boundary marker under the red sky, under the red king, or that glowing eye in the sky that's an inverted dome at the apex of the firmament. They say, the professor goes on to say, this is also like the Wizard of Oz and you know, different stereotypes like that. Today marks the beginning of my greatest, most singular achievement, or singular most greatest achievement. My impenetrable fortress, which is an allusion to Mount Meru, here in the center of their habitat. In the center, just as that Phantom Island on medieval maps, circular in nature, at the center of our world, with Mount Meru, the fortress, the castle, the plasma volcano, etc., and so on and so forth, at the center of that. I call it Wonderland. That's because when you get there, it will be wondrous to you. Your academics, your upbringing, everything that you have come to be taught by the world that we live in under these, you know, degraded conditions that we live in, has told you there are no places to explore. There are no wonderful, strange, weird, magical places. That's all fictitious. That's all fantasy. That's all lies. It's not true. This world that we have created, this system, these boxes, these cubes that you live in, this is your reality. But it's not. That's not all there is. There's more to the story. Something's being hidden. Something's being veiled from us and from our knowledge. What is that something? This place. Right here, the Tet Island, the circular island with the cross in the middle, with the cross section, the 4 rivers, the 4 quadrants, the 4 corners of the earth, with a black sea in the middle, or a lake, a dark lake, because it's pure water, and so the light passes through and keeps on going, with the rock in the middle, the great mountain, the holy mountain, the place of meeting, the throne of God, with a light that is given birth from within and erupts as a pillar out and up into the heavens, acting as a stairway or a beanstalk, etc., and so on and so forth. This is the place of Meru, the place of Maruvel, or marvels, the Maru-El, right? The El of Meru, the gods of Meru, the angels of Meru, however you want to see it. This is where marvels happen. This is where wonders happen. This is Wonderland. And even more so when you go down into the westernmost point, which is this place right here where the Zephyr comes out. Phew. So he says, I had to rely on manual labor. So when he's creating this Wonderland, this place right here, I had to rely on manual labor, right? Machines didn't quite cut it. 13 a day. So he's implying there were 13 people that he would draw to this place in this haunted forest or whatever, magical forest. 13 people every day helped him to create this, right? 13, no more, no less. That was the rule. There had to be an association of 13 lives with this place, actual physical place on Earth. 13 months, 365 days a year. Why do we have all these weird months with different amounts of numbers and stuff? In the old world, we went according to different calendars based on different projections and focal points and things that we saw in the sky. We constantly have to adjust and shift to a constantly adjusting and shifting clock that's up there above us in the heavens. If you take 365 days and you divide that by 13, you get 28, which is the lunar cycle. That makes way more sense than... 20 days has September, April, May, June, November. All the rest have 31, except for February, blah, 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 and all these weird... No. Something's wrong. 13 bloodlines, right? The original inhabitants that came from this land, that were expelled from this land, and then they became nomadic and traveled the Southlands and settled around the Southlands. 13 months, 13 bloodlines, 13 Ghosts. The movie 13 Ghosts is also all about this same exact thing. The 13 American colonies. Friday the 13th, also with a cabin in the woods, or many cabins in the woods, and killers that live amongst them, right? Watchers. The 13 at the Last Supper, which includes the 12 disciples. Keep in mind there were actually 13 because one of them was a betrayer, Judas, and he was sort of voted out. He died. And replaced. So there was 13 total. But if you just take the 12 with Jesus in the middle, that makes 13, right? All this reference to the number 13. Imagine if you could access all of that perverted power, the power of duplication, right? Or cellular regeneration, your cells duplicating. Imagine what one could do. One could even cheat death. And that is what happens on this island at the North Pole. That's also what happens in various places of power scattered around the Southlands where we currently live, while they have the energy coming up and out of those cavernous systems. Cellular regeneration allows you to cheat death. It allows you to get your elastin back, your snap back to your skin. It is the fountain of youth, and there are many of them. One major, huge one at the center of the world is the most powerful one. It's the most impacting one. There are lesser ones all around the world, or have been in ancient times. They have since receded. They have gone down to charge into the bowels of the earth, into Tartarus. That's another thing too, right? Tartaros, the Tartarus, the jail under the world, the holding place of the angels or the watchers, right? These beams, these powerful beams of energy that have gone down into the earth to wait for a time of their emergence. Hey, Stephanie Cook just donated $5 to me in the chat. Thank you, Stephanie. That was kind. So she says, she's watching this video of the professor. He caught one of them. Let me make it bigger. Check this out. As you can see, it stands up and it's huge, really tall. This is also shown to you in what was it, Split by M. Night Shyamalan, right? Where there's the Beast character. Like the guy is like, he's schizophrenic, and one of his characters is a beast. And when he turns into the beast, he actually grows like 6 inches. He's super tall. He gets real strong and stuff. But these watchers, in modern creepypasta or internet lore, these are called the Rake, Siren Head, the Rake, things of that nature. Very lengthy, tall creatures, right? Which are giants, basically, right? And then it shrieks, right? So on one hand, they shriek if they represent plasma. On the other hand, they're very tall and lean because they are giant humanoids. They're gigantic in nature. We are small. If you ever used to watch Fraggle Rock, we're not the Fraggles. We're the Doozers at this point in time. That's how tiny we are in comparison to the world to come. When the atmosphere depressurizes, when buoyancy increases in this world, when the atmosphere is electrically amplified and invigorates you, your children will grow to gigantic proportions, and so will theirs, and so will theirs, and people will become gigantic once more. Your size, your stature will be the anomaly, right? For those of you who have already kind of stopped growing, right? Anyways, gigantism will return. This guy says, I've been down here 300 days. 300, 1/3 of 900. Traditionally speaking, there were 900 angels altogether, and 300 of them fell and came down or whatever. A third of the angels. He says, I used to think of myself as some kind of visionary. The Red King. The red circle in the sky. Nibiru. The Doom Shape. The planet of the crossing. The all-seeing eye. Visionary. That's what this is referring to. But now, when I catch sight of myself in the mirror upstairs, right? It's a domed mirror, by the way. I'm repulsed at what I see. Now, that mirror, that dome, that inverted portion of the firmament, I believe, falls when it breaks. I believe that the sky will break open and that dome of ice will fall down and crash and break into pieces just like Humpty Dumpty, and no one will be able to put them back together again. And it'll create the Arctic Circle. It will create icebergs all the way around the northern lands, and it'll create, what do you call it? Like permanent winter. I forgot how academics teaches that. Like, you know, the period on Earth where like the whole northern hemisphere for some reason was just covered in ice and frozen or whatever. I forgot what they call that. But anyways, that's because the sky falls, okay? And the ice breaks into all these pieces, and it makes fresh icebergs with fresh water, no salt in it. Pieces of the dome. Anyways, he says, get to the boat. Now, he's talking to you. He's talking to me, giving instructions. The movie's giving instructions once again. Instructions on how to survive, or instructions on how to get to particular places. Follow the birds. The birds are they seem to be very in tune to the electromagnetic fields and currents of the earth. Watch out, because this is a huge omen. When you start seeing flocks and flocks and flocks of thousands and maybe millions of birds headed over countries, headed north instead of heading south, that's probably a time when you might want to start thinking about following the animals. They're already doing this. They're already changing their migrational patterns. If you've tuned into my Omen segment, you've seen the whales, the birds. They're often weird locations. They're in places they shouldn't be. They're beaching themselves. It's because the electromagnetic fields, the ley lines of the world, are shifting. They're going into flux. They're changing. And when they're done changing, there will be a powerful signal sent from Mount Meru that they can all feel and sense, and they know it's time to get to the ship before the world sinks, before the world goes to pieces. They just know this intuitively. So it would be wise, if you don't know this and you don't have that intuition, to follow the animals. This is what they did with the ark. This is what they did when Adam named all of them on earth. How do you think that happened? They all had to gather into one spot. How do they do that? Some things are meant to be left in the past, they say. Well, I think that depends on your perspective. I'm not one that feels that way, but I can understand why, they keep secrets from the general population. The general population is stupid and naive and dumb and fearful and angry and dangerous. You know what I mean? But an individual might be privy to certain secrets. Now, they decide to leave. They go up during the daytime and they take off. They're trying to get off of this haunted island, this forest place. They get to this sort of warning barrier. As you can see, it's got like wings there, right? This is like the watchers that have wings. They say no turning back. They let the golden bird out, and its name is Darwin, which is actually pretty interesting. Darwin is most notable for taking his boat, the Beagle, to the Galapagos, and they named one of the Galapagos Islands after Darwin, but he found all these different species there. Why? Right? And some of those species that he found on the Galapagos Islands, and I've talked about this before, but some of those species have no business being on an island. They can't swim. How did they get there? You know what I mean? Jamar, hey, what's up, Jamar? High five. All right, let's continue on. So they say, we'll follow your lead, right? They're going to follow Darwin, right? They're going to, it's not, to me, it's not so much about evolution, but it's about the island that is filled with all these different types of life forms. That's because they come up out of the hollows of the earth through cavernous systems, and all of a sudden they come up and they're on an island. You know what I mean? At least during the time when the world floods with water and stuff like that, right? So they come up, they're on islands. There happens to be one right near the exit to Eden, and the entrance as well to Eden, which is the Euphrates River, which is right here. Now let's check this out. If you zoom in on it, it says on ancient maps, there's this island that just jets out of the ocean, and it's got a hole in the middle as if it's a volcano, or there's a cave within this rock that's just jutting up out of the ocean. It says here, Polus magnetis respectu insularu capitis viridis, which in short, loosely translated, means this is one of the magnetic poles, and it is the island of life, or the green island, right? Salty, hey, what's up, Salty Dog? Gave me $5 and says, to the lovely girl who sings the ending song. Aw, well, that's nice. That is Cacti. Her name's Cacti, by the way. All right, let's continue on. We're almost done with this movie. So they get past this little seal, and she says, this must be where the fairies were imprisoned. And they show you the image of these fairies on the seal. It is said that they once lived among us as gods, which they did. The bridge between nature and man. Now they look like the rake. Notice the elongated fingers. You'll see that with a lot of witch symbolism and stuff. Wizards, witches, the rake, phantazoids, humanoid phantazoids and stuff. They have long elongated fingers, oftentimes longer ears that grow. That's because these are immortal beings. They're probably hundreds and hundreds of years old. Their nose tends to be a lot longer as well because the nose continues to grow. Different body parts that continue to grow when you're an immortal being by comparison. And they began to frighten us. So they were trapped down within the recesses of the world, the bowels of the world. Now, the light definitely gets trapped, okay? All these Titanic, they look like those things that you see in front of used car lots, those wacky wailing inflatable arm, whatever they call those things, right? They kind of look like that, plasma that shoots up out of these things. They move about in the currents, in the atmosphere. But there's also people that went into the earth to survive when they knew a deluge was coming. If they knew, suppose they knew that a deluge, that the world would be flooded, they're going to go down into the earth. If they know what I'm teaching you right now and sharing with you, then yeah, they need to hide. They have to go into the earth. But when they go into the earth, those seals seal back up. right? And they're stuck down there. Super Saiyan Yet, welcome to my channel. I didn't see the other person's name, but welcome to my channel as well. Human and Fae were at war. The humans and the gods. A great war. Anytime you hear a reference to the Great War in any of these movies, it's not discussing Civil War, Revolutionary War, World War I, World War II. This is an ancient war. This is Ragnarok. This is a mixing of all species, of all creatures, mythic and modern, all together at once when they're all thrown together during the apocalypse. They were banished, she says, to a tomb deep underground. This is the story of a billion different gods, okay? Sealed in by a great door. That would be Janus, the doorkeeper, the doorman. Or if you watch that Dream movie we broke down, the doorknob salesman, right? The same thing. That prevented them from ever returning the way they came in. Now, this is an interesting word. That doesn't mean without end. They're not down there. When we think of forever, forever literally means for an age. Does not mean forever and ever and ever and ever and it'll never stop. Okay? It doesn't mean infinite. Ever means an age. Okay? So prevented them from returning for an age the way that they came in. For centuries. And if you don't believe me, just check it out. Go look up the word ever in, Greek or whatever. For centuries, they clawed toward the surface, only to discover they had lost their wings, their magic. Now, there's an interesting book that I've read here on my channel. Every once in a while, I'll read a book, older books. This one's called Vril. And in this story, it's much like the Smoky God book. It is presented to us in the modern world as a fiction, as not real. But the book reads like a fact, like a historic actual event that happened to somebody, and they're sharing it with the world, hesitant because they know it sounds crazy, right? This book, Vril, describes these inner earth humanoids, very tall, that have this ethereal energy down inside of the earth, that's basically plasma, that they bathe in, that keeps them young, that they use and harness as an energy source for weapons and other things, and they have these sort of jetpacks. I don't know how else to describe it in the book, okay? These inner earth beings have this technology that allows them to like fly around and hover around and stuff too. Their wings, we'll say. Could it be physical actual wings too? Possibly, I don't know. So they escape. They get to the boat. They escape from the haunted island or whatnot. They get to this bridge. A bus comes. Bus, remember, bus means box. That's where we get the word bus from. It used to be called omnibus, or a box that holds everything, basically. She's inside. You can see a reflection again. More symbolism there. The twin symbolism. Now, she gets to that professor's college office, and for some reason they just let her right in, and she's going through the professor's stuff, and the professor is heard on a tape that's playing. He says, "A time before the Fae." That's short for fairies, okay? It's also short for fire, like few, all these types of words, Fae. In olden times, I have found that it implied light, or by extension, fire, okay? A time before the Fae were wingless, feral beasts. She opens up and finds a scroll. This is more symbolism of the firmament, receding like a scroll. Life with the fairies was a golden era in the age of man. They lived among us as guardians, friends, even mates. And then it shows these angelic creatures up in the air. They put wings on them. And some of them were seen as helpful, at least for a time. But then times started to change. And as times started to change, this little picture they show us changes too. Born of both man and fairy, as the fairies intermingled with mankind, these tall, giant, otherworldly creatures that had access to otherworldly technology, intermingled, had children with, interbred with humans, creating demigods, or part angelic beings and part human beings, or part fractalverse humanoids and part terrestrial humanoids, you could say, as I do. Even replicating those that had passed on. So they had the ability to like change their physical features, right? Now, I believe this is totally possible on a physical level for changelings, shapeshifters, not just plasma. Plasma easily can be a shapeshifter, right? But you have stem cells within your skin, within your body. And those stem cells are like quintessential cells that have the ability to change into any other part of your body. You can program a stem cell to grow a tooth right here on your chin or your cheek, or you know what I mean? You can program it to grow an eyeball on your shoulder or whatever, right? They can become any part of the body. That's where all of them basically stem from. They're stem cells. Now, if you have full control of your mind or your brain, which we don't at this point in time because we're on low, we're running on fumes, remember? Could you think your stem cells into doing what you want them to? Could you take control of your body parts? Some of you should count your lucky stars that you can't control things like that should be on autopilot, like your heartbeat or your brain function or whatever. You get super distracted way too quick and probably die. But let's say that we change the conditions of the world that we live in. And now it's easier to control. And now you can activate your junk DNA, your stem cells and things like that. And you can make your body what you want it to be. A shapeshifter. Interesting. Possibility, right? But when the humans cursed and banished the fairies, it goes on to say, what became of the halflings? What became of the blood relatives of these extraterrestrials or interterrestrials? Well, they became interterrestrials, according to the history. History has deemed their bloodline extinct. Now, according to the myths and the legends, some of them were banished into the earth, into Tartarus, into the hollow earth, or they went down there purposefully in order to survive the cataclysm that was happening above, right? Admiral Byrd, in his secret diary, which is, speculative to exist, but it's, regardless, I find a lot of truth in Admiral Byrd's secret diary. It says that he went into the inner earth and he met these tall beings and saw their technology and whatnot. He's not the only one. This has happened many times across time. This happened to Enoch a long time ago. In the book of Enoch, he describes going into the earth and seeing these caverns that hold different creatures and stuff. Some of them also leave going up, according to different traditions as well. So go in or go out, either way. And then it shows this angel sort of with a key locking it all up, right? That would be the Archangel Michael, typically speaking. With their power, think of what we could create if we had that power. Who we could bring back. Now, he's talking about bringing back his dead wife, basically, right? So resurrecting people, the power of resurrection, the power over death. Death happens right now. We're used to it, unfortunately. Sadly, I'm not used to it. I don't want to die. I don't want to get old. I'm not okay with what's happening. Time is quickening. It's going too fast. I don't like forgetting. I don't like growing old. I don't like all this stuff. You guys might have accepted your fates, little tiny minuscule lifespans, but I don't, okay? Because my soul doesn't feel that. My soul doesn't resonate with that at all. My soul resonates with the glorious times, the magical times, the golden age, etc. So I'm very much on par with that. Anyways, my point is, he's talking about bringing them back, right? These beams of energy can bring back life. They can resurrect the dead. This is why in places of power across the world, during prior golden ages or dark ages, people built huge healing centers, huge buildings that didn't have windows, to harness the energy that was coming up through cavernous systems. They aligned these buildings with pipes and organs in order to fine-tune the vibrations on the inside to amplify this healing ability. And they had catacombs, dead people down underneath these temples, these buildings, because that's where that energy would course through, resurrecting the dead, bringing them back to life, recharging them, basically. She sees a mural. This mural just basically shows the ancient fae, the fairy, the angels, however you want to look at them, right? The tall people, the giants. Notice the color, right? This is what I call phantazoid white. Doesn't mean these were Caucasians or anything of the such. Look at the eyes. These are the dragon lords, too. You see these eyes? They kind of look like cat people. See that? Right? It looks very much like cats, like the musical, too. Now, they're out of that island, but they figured out that the old lady that was in there with them the whole time was actually one of the watchers, right? She was pretending to be a human because she was studying them up close. She was one of these fairies. Now this is her again. She shapeshifts and she's like, she grabs her and she's like, we were like gods once. These fairies, these angels and stuff. We were smothered under the dirt for centuries, or biblically speaking, sent down into the bowels of Tartarus. Forced to claw through the earth like bugs. Now, I will also say this bug reference happens a lot in the movies too. There are, along with gigantic humanoids, deep within the hollow recesses of our world, gigantic bugs. And whenever the surface is inundated with fresh oxygen during a great oxidation event, the bugs on the surface will once again grow to gigantic sizes, okay? So if you decide to live on the Southlands and stay here, and you're not near one of these places of power or whatever, or light sources, you're going to have to contend with gigantic bugs. Sorry, but that's why if you want to go north and you don't like bugs like I don't, you might want to go north to where it's colder. Get away from the bugs. You were my pets, she says. The shapeshifter says, you were my pets, right? Cattle, animals. I was studying you close up. Now, this is a quote from the Bible about shape-shifting angels. Be careful how you treat strangers, because one of them might be an angel in disguise. Hebrews 13:2. This is just one translation of many, right? The Bible implies that angels have the ability to look, to change their shape, to look like humans. There's another one that says, when the crowd saw what Paul had done, they lifted up their voices in the Lycaonian language and said, the gods have come down to us in human form. So there was one of these apostles of Jesus named Paul or Saul. And when he went into these foreign lands and he was like telling them all of this, you know, these stories and these truths and stuff, they thought that he was Zeus in human form, or Mercury. Him and his, you know, he had a buddy with him too. Anyways, they call this one that escaped off of the island the Daywalker because she can be out in the light. She's demigod. She's part human, right? Her name, her real name, or her angel name is Ein Reoccurring. Ein Reoccurring. I looked that up, and I believe it means something like formless one or without form. Okay, so basically shapeshifter, something that has the ability to change into any shape. The Daywalker. This is also like from vampire movies. Any vampire that can go about in the day is usually called the Daywalker. This is the ancient vampiric race. Same thing. That's because they mingled with humans that had melanin in their skin, in their blood and stuff, and they adapted over time. Right? Going out in the sun a little bit at a time, their body started to adapt. And as they had children, their body learned. Their stem cells learned, and their DNA learned, and it adapted over time and was able to go out into the sunlight. She says, I am the Daywalker. She picks her up. She's going to kill her, but then they have this little chat. She decides not to because this lady grows wings. It's kind of dark right here, and it's kind of hard to see, so I'll zoom in. But you can see at the end of the movie, she just sort of bursts these wings out of her back. And this is her. It's kind of hard to see. This is her up on. This is like a skinwalker. You know what I mean? The rake, skinwalkers, all that type of stuff. That's all real. Okay, Bigfoot, all that stuff's real. So, anyways, you can't really see it, but she's got wings and she flaps off and takes off. And she's like, goodbye. And then at the end of the movie, she shapeshifts again into this little redheaded kid who's like kind of spying on her, keeping tabs on her. And this is what she looks like when she shapeshifts into this child. Notice the very see-through coloration of the skin, very pale white, red hair, blue eyes, right? These are all descriptors of these Watchers, of the Ancient Ones. And that's pretty much the end of today's movie, The Watchers. I want to thank everyone for joining me today. If you like these kinds of subjects and more, go check out my website, JayDreamerZ.com. I also have 2 books that I have written. The Ancient Oblivion books, I call them. Ancient Oblivion, The Plasma Apocalypse, and Ancient Oblivion, Return to Hyperborea, which is, you know, the main part of this movie that we've just discussed. Feel free to check those out. Until next time, I'm JayDreamerZ saying good vibes and goodbye.
But something's forcing me to stay. Decode.